Hello everyone, welcome back to Desert Fresh Aquatics. My name is Nate, and today I have some good news and some bad news. The bad news is that when it comes to my pea puffer in this 5-gallon tank, I've made a tremendous mistake that I just found out about. The good news, however, is that I do have a solution to fix it. So today we're gonna discuss the mistake that I made, how it was a mistake, and how we're gonna fix it. You guys will be able to follow me along the whole process as I work on fixing this issue that I created. And as a new fish keeper, I really did know that I was gonna make some mistakes, but the important part is realizing what mistakes you made and then taking action in order to correct them. And today, that's the big project, and that's exactly what we're gonna do. So let's dive into it. In my last couple of videos, I put together this 5-gallon fish tank for a single dwarf pea pufferfish. I didn't realize it at the time, but that was going to be a pretty big mistake. Since my last video, I've been trying so hard to get footage of this pea pufferfish to show you guys, but he's just been so shy and it's been so difficult to actually get footage of the fish without him swimming away into the back corner of the tank where he can't be seen. I was really curious as to why the fish was so skittish. Decided to go onto some online forums and ask some pea puffer experts what their opinions were on why my fish was potentially being so shy. It was then in those forums that I learned that you really should not be keeping a single pea pufferfish by itself. They're a social shoaling species, and it really is necessary to have at least 6 of them together in order to create natural behavior patterns through them. And it also eases psychological distress. Now, with that being said, it would be really cruel to put that many pufferfish into a 5-gallon tank like this. And the folks in those online forums said that I need at least a 20-gallon tank in order to get that extra space for those pufferfish. So then my dilemma was, do I rehome this pufferfish and potentially put something else in this tank? Or do I do the right thing for this pufferfish and expand his tank? And guys, I wouldn't be a true fish keeper unless I was as eager as I am to add fish tanks to my collection. So naturally, I went out, I bought a 20 long fish tank that I'm going to be setting up today. Now, this piece of furniture that this tank is currently sitting on, I do not trust to hold the weight of a 20 long. So I decided that I'm going to get a different fish tank stand that is going to be capable of holding the weight while still looking really good. With that, I'm going to have to relocate this 5-gallon fish tank. I've already cleared off a spot on my kitchen counter where I know it'll go perfect. Then the plan is to rotate this shelf so that it stands vertically, so I have space over here for that new aquarium stand. I'm gonna build the stand. It's that box that's just to the left of me there. I don't know if you guys can see that. But I'm gonna be putting that together first, getting the tank all situated on top of it. And then after that, we have to take a trip over to our local aquarium store where I'm going to be getting substrate, aqua soil, rocks, driftwood, basically substrate and hardscape. As for plants for the new tank, I already put in an order for those, and the plant order, I will say, is massive compared to the order that I placed for this tank here. If I had to take a guess, I would say it's at least 3 times as big of an order of plants, so it will fill out that 20-gallon pretty well, especially once it's all grown in like this tank now. So, first order of business, I have to drain most of the water out of this tank so that it can be relocated over to my kitchen counter. After that, we're gonna jump right into constructing this new aquarium stand that arrived today. Let's get to it. All right, guys, now that that is mostly drained, the hard part is actually very carefully moving this tank over to my kitchen counter. And my pufferfish is still in there and that little bit of water in the bottom, so I'm gonna try not to agitate this as much as possible. All right, guys, so we got it onto the counter here. So we're gonna carefully move it into position here. See, right about there should do the trick. And then we're gonna try to fill this up as quickly as we can so that we can get our fish free swimming again. And just like that, we've got the tank set up exactly how it was, but in a new location now. So the next step is to go to the local fish store and pick up substrate and hardscape that we were talking about, driftwood and rocks mainly. And you might be wondering what I'm gonna put in this tank after I move this puffer fish into the 20 long with some other puffers. That is gonna be another part of this project that we're gonna cover in a future video. It'll be a big surprise, but I promise you're gonna love it. And since we just did such a big water change, I'm going to go ahead and put in some fertilizer for the plants, since we just took out so much of that water with all of those nitrates in it that are gonna feed those plants. And then guys, we're gonna go ahead and hit it with some API quick start to make sure that we didn't compromise our nitrogen cycle as we did that big change. Always give a really good shake of any bottle before you use it. No matter what it is, always shake it. I don't know how long it's gonna take for me to build this aquarium stand. So if it's gonna take me hours and hours, the last thing I wanna do is miss out on going to the fish store today. So let's head out, let's get going. All right guys, well, we finally made it to the aquarium store and it's about 6 o'clock right now in the afternoon. The store closes at 7, so we've got about an hour to pick out our hardscape. Now, with that being said, this is the aquarium store that I like to go for most of my needs. It's called Aquarium Arts. It's a aquarium store located in Mesa, Arizona, and I've been nothing but impressed by them every time I've been. Now, as far as a game plan goes, I'm not 100% sure what I want to do with this fish tank as far as what kind of shape, what kind of wood, what kind of rocks. I have no idea. I'm literally gonna go in there and just see what kind of rocks and wood and everything speaks to me, and we're gonna go from there. Let's go ahead and run in there. All right guys, I'm really liking the look of some of this Sirius stone and dragon stone. So we'll see if we can maybe do some of this and some spider wood. I think would be a great combo. Well, we used most of our hour, but we got a lot of driftwood, we got several rocks, we got aqua soil, we got pretty much everything that we need. So we'll just have to go back to the house, build that aquarium stand, get the tank ready, and then we can go ahead and start with the substrate and the hardscape. And I hope, fingers crossed, that I can get it all done tonight. If I can't get it all done tonight, then I do have tomorrow off as well, so I should be able to get it knocked out at the very latest by tomorrow night. Let's go ahead and head home. We're finally back home, and now it is time to put together that aquarium stand, which I'm kind of dreading because I know that it's a flat pack in that box right there. Say hello to the puppy. But yeah, this might take a little while, but we're gonna get after it. All right, guys, and now we're done. So this whole thing took forever to put together, but it looks good. Tank fits on there nicely. Everything works properly. So I think that it's pretty late tonight, so I think I'll leave it as is for the rest of the evening, and then we'll tackle the scape for the tank tomorrow.
2,000 years later.
Welcome back, guys. It is now the next morning, and today we are gonna finish this project, at least this portion of it. Today we're gonna be covering the filtration, the lighting, as well as cleaning up the tank itself. We're also gonna be putting in our substrate and hardscape today, making sure that that's all positioned correctly and secure, so that when we do get our plants next week, we can just put them directly into the tank without having to do any other prep work. Now, the first step of doing any tank build is obviously cleaning up the tank itself. I don't know if you can see on camera right now, but there's some dust in the bottom of it. There's some epoxy, loose epoxy on the glass here that I did not see when I purchased this tank. But that's something that we can take care of pretty easily. It's the most boring step, so we'll tackle that first and get it out of the way. But before we dive into that, I do want to show you guys the filter that I'll be using, as well as the light that I'm going to be using on this tank here. All right, guys, starting with the light here, this is the Haiger HG957 light. So this is actually the exact same light that I'm using right now on my little 5-gallon tank. Obviously, this is just the bigger version of it. So with this light, it's got these extendable side mounts here, which is nice, so you can fit it to a wide variety of tank sizes. And then this one, you don't have to use an external timer to set it on. This one actually has a built-in timer system here, which I've heard 50-50 mixed things about it. Half of the people that get this light, they love it. They think it's super, super easy to use. It is really cost effective regardless. But then the other folks absolutely cannot figure out this system here. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle, and I have got it working well enough to where I can work with it, but I don't know all of the ins and outs of it. But as long as it works, I'm okay with it. And like I said, really cost-effective light. I think that this one only cost me, it was anywhere between like 45 to 60 bucks on Amazon. It's not insane. I do want to get into some higher end lighting in the future, but pea puffers tend to not really like super high light. So I'm getting lower light plants that are easier to keep with a not super, super powerful light like this. This will grow most things okay. But a high power light is something that I definitely want to get in the future and do like some carpeting plants and things like that. But moving on to the filter, this is also the same type of filter that I'm using on my 5-gallon right now. So this is the Fluval Aqua Clear 30 or AC 30. So this is a hang-on back filter, obviously. Remove the cover here so you can see inside there. So these filters are really nice because they have this built-in little basket here, which you can see. This is the carbon that they sent me with the filter. It's still wrapped in the plastic. I haven't opened that up yet. I'm not quite sure if I'm going to use this right off the bat, but we'll think about it. And then down here, this is the Fluval Biomax, which is just essentially super high surface area ceramic. That is for breeding beneficial bacteria, which is going to help maintain our cycle and keep our ammonia levels at 0 in the tank. And then the nice thing, the basket, it comes right out like that. And then you have that sponge in the bottom there. And then it's all sectioned off. So you have your section for your Biomax and for your carbon or any other type of media that you would want to put in the back there. In my 5-gallon right now, I'm just using some filter floss in that back section there. And that's maybe what I'll do. At least initially, I might use the carbon in the AC30, but just to get the tannins out of the water, from any tannins from the wood that it's releasing into the water. But we'll kind of see. We'll see what we feel when we get there. All right, guys. Well, now that we've got that covered, I'm gonna go ahead and get started on cleaning up this tank. Basically gonna wipe down the whole exterior, the whole interior of the tank, and then I'm gonna apply a film to the back of the tank, which is going to be a kind of frosted color film texture. So that is going to increase the sense of depth and kind of hide the cords and the filter hanging off the back here like I did on my 5-gallon. I really wanted to try a black film to put on the back of the tank this time around, but I don't have any and I'm too broke and lazy to go get more. So we're just gonna roll with what I have, which is that frosted film. And I'll spare you guys having to go through that whole process with me in real time. I'll just speed it up for you. Well guys, as it turns out, I actually don't have enough of this film right now. So it's not gonna be long enough to go across this whole 20-gallon long tank across the back. The tank is pretty clean though, so we should be all set there. But it looks like I'm gonna have to go out and get some more film because it's gonna be way, way harder to put this onto the tank when I can't flip it over and do it like this. So we gotta do it before we put stuff in there, and it's gotta be done. So I guess we're going to the store.
A few moments later.
All right, guys, we're back from the store, and maybe a blessing in disguise. I got the black window film finally, so we're actually gonna end up seeing how the black window film looks on the back of the tank. I think it'll be interesting to see how that compares to the kind of frosted clear window film. So let's go ahead and let's put it on the tank and see how it looks. All right, guys, so we are finally done with the black film application. All right, guys, but now the time has finally come for us to put some substrate in here. We'll get started with substrate, but then after that, we'll put in the rocks, the driftwood, play around with different arrangements, see what looks the best. And then once we get everything set in stone, no pun intended, then we'll go ahead and we'll glue everything together. All right, so we're gonna start by adding the rest of this black fine contra soil from UN Systems. So this is the leftovers that I had from the 5-gallon tank, but we're gonna go ahead and put it to use in this one. I'm gonna put it on the bottom because it's a fine grain, and then I got that big bag of the regular grain from the fish store yesterday. So this one will be hidden, but it'll still provide a lot of really good nutrients for my plants. All right, so that's the small bag in. And then we got the big bag here. Same exact stuff, just a little bit of a larger grain on the aqua soil. I don't think I'm gonna use this entire bag, but I would always rather have more than I need than not enough. So we're gonna do a pretty tall slope to the back. That's just gonna create a lot more depth or sense of depth when we're looking at the tank from the front. Say, let's work with that for now. That's a pretty good nutrient base in there. If we have to add more, I do have quite a bit left in the bag here. Now this, the most overlooked tool in the fish keeping hobby, is a paintbrush. This works better than anything that I've found to spread around aqua soil, gravel, and sand. All right, guys, so I feel like we have pretty good shape going here so far. Now I have this big open area in the front here. Now that is gonna be my dead zone, I guess, which that is just an area that's gonna be essentially all cosmetic sand kind of in the front, but then that path is gonna lead all the way back up to the glass there. All right, guys, so now we're just gonna go ahead and put some rocks in there and the driftwood and keep playing around with it and arranging it in different ways and seeing what looks the best. Okay, so I quite like that piece there on the right. And here's this next big piece. This one's gonna be a challenge to get in there because it's so large, but we'll play around with it and see what we can make happen here. Now let's try to see how some of these rocks fit into the equation here. So now you can see this is touching just barely right here. So that's something that we can tack it. We can put a little glue tack right there. We can glue it right here, and we can glue it down with this rock that's laying over that branch right here. So this tank is by far the biggest one that I've ever built. And when I went shopping, I kind of had the mindset of just get way bigger decor than you think you're gonna need. And I fear I may have gone too large with this one. I may have to cut this piece. I'm gonna try to make it work as it is, but if I have to cut it, I'll be kind of sad, but I'll try not to let anything go to waste. Yeah, I quite like that look. I like that a lot. Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and glue together everything that we have so far, just so that that does not move. And then we're gonna go ahead and add some of my smaller, more spiky pieces of spider wood. I've got just a little bit of filter floss or filter wool here. Now, unfortunately, all the super glue that I have is gel super glue. Usually if you're using a like a fibrous binding agent like this, then it's better to use a liquid super glue, but this is all I have right now. So we're just gonna drench this piece of filter floss in the gel super glue, lay it down there, put the rock on top of it, and that should bind up okay. Okay guys, so I really think that I'm making this a lot harder on myself than it has to be using the gel super glue. So we're gonna go to the store again and get some liquid super glue, which should work a lot better for affixing all this hardscape together. Now the gel super glue is super handy when you're attaching plants like epiphytes or moss, epiphytes like Anubias and that kind of thing. So I think that if I get some liquid super glue, use that with the filter floss like I'm trying to do with this, then that'll be a lot quicker, a lot easier, and just make this whole process a lot smoother.
One eternity later.
All right, guys, liquid super glue acquired. So now I'm gonna go back over those same spots with the liquid super glue just to make sure that everything connected okay. And then going forward, all the hardscape I'm gonna affix with this and the filter floss. All of this super glue with that filter floss right there, that's absolutely soaked in super glue. Much easier than what I was just trying to do with the gel. This is much, much easier. Some of these smaller pieces here, they're gonna be the main visual features. And these are pretty weird shaped, as you can see. So fitting them in there in a way that makes it look like it's all one piece of wood or all kind of jammed in there naturally, that's gonna be tricky, but I think we might be able to make it happen. And I'm gonna go ahead and do this next part. I'm gonna speed it up a little bit just because this is taking longer than I was expecting. I'll see you guys once we get everything fixed. All right, guys, well, now that my fingers are all covered in super glue and I'm tired, I'm pretty sure our hardscape looking really, really good. We got those two rocks there with all those pieces coming up from the right side. Our biggest feature is there on the left side. As you can see, we got all that driftwood affixed there. Now, you can definitely see some of the filter floss like down here. I tried to sprinkle some Aquasoil on there to hide that better. I promise you once we're done, none of that's gonna be visible. I'm gonna do my best to kind of clean up whatever loose bits are left once everything is fully set and cured. Once we're at that point, then I am gonna go ahead and cover it up with plants and moss. So it'll be completely invisible once this tank is totally done. All right, guys, and I think that that'll about wrap up the hardscape. Now, you're probably wondering why there's no sand or gravel. I got sand, I got gravel, I got bigger stones to put in there. So the reason why I'm not putting that in there right now is because when I planted my 5-gallon tank, I put down the sand, I put down the gravel and everything before planting. And when I planted, what happened was I ended up getting Aquasoil that came up above my decorative substrate layer. So what I'm thinking I'm gonna do in this one is just plant directly into the aqua soil. And then from there, I'm going to then lay down my decorative substrate layers. So that'll be the very last thing that I do before I fill this tank with water for the first time. I just got my plants delivered here from Flip Aquatics, and this is the biggest box that they've ever sent me, probably because it's the largest plant order that I've ever placed with them. And besides just plants that are in this box, I also decided that I wanted to try a live food culture. So I also ordered a Daphnia starter culture, which I'm planning on culturing in this little bin underneath the tank here. And I've never cultured Daphnia before, so we're gonna see how it goes. I'm really excited to hopefully have a live food source to pull from to feed all of my fish. And since my last video, I made a couple small tweaks to the tank. I added some more aqua soil, sloping it up more aggressively towards the back, which also really helped increase the sense of depth in the tank. And then I also took some of my coarse gravel and placed it in the gaps in between the rocks and the glass in a couple of areas in order to prevent the aqua soil from migrating down on top of my sand layer. That way I don't have to spend time putting down that substrate layer after I've planted, because after you plant, you really have to make sure that you keep those plants wet. And once we're done with that, we're gonna go ahead and open up the box. I'll start by getting my Daphnia culture in its new container, and then I'll have to spend some time prepping up all of our plants, getting them ready to go into the tank, and then we'll go ahead and put the plants into the tank and fill it up. But I'm ready when you are, so let's get this show on the road. All right, guys, let's go ahead and get this box opened up. All right, guys, so we've got our Daphnia culture here. I don't know if you can see them swimming around in there. So that'll be our starter culture. I also got some of the shrimple food for Daphnia from Flip Aquatics. So I got the pack. They sold this as a bundle. So hopefully this should give us a good, healthy Daphnia culture that we can use to feed our fish going forward. But then we have all of these plants that we have to prep and get ready to go into the tank. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my spray bottle and a tray, and we're gonna go ahead and speed this up and get all of these plants processed so that we can go ahead and plant them. And I'm just using a baking sheet, a clean baking sheet with plastic wrap over it just to make sure that there's no cross-contamination. But I'll speed this up for you guys so you don't have to sit here and take all this time to process these plants with me.
A few moments later.
All right, guys. Well, I'm getting really sick and tired of losing all of my time-lapse footage. I did try to record me prepping all of these plants with a time-lapse video, but unfortunately it didn't save for some reason. So I'll go over these plants really quickly here so we can get to the next step. So I've got Crypspiralis here, this big tangly mess. Some of you guys might remember I do have one of these in my 5-gallon tank that took in absolutely terrific. And I think that 5 of these in the 20-gallon tank is gonna be excellent. And then over here, we've got a couple Anubias hastifolia. So this is gonna be probably our most prominent plant that we have in this tank. I've got 2 of those. And then here I've got some Anubias caupifolia. So that'll help fill in some of the gaps on the rocks and the driftwood. as well as just a couple little Anubias Nana Petite here. And then I have some more Crypt Lutea. So this is also growing really, really well in my 5-gallon tank. So we're gonna be putting a bunch of those into the 20. And then here, a plant that I've never tried before. This is Brazilian pennywort. Now, the Brazilian pennywort grows quite tall. It's a pretty fast growing stem plant, but I really love the look of like those little lily pad leaves. I think that that's gonna add a lot of really good height in the back of our aquarium. I'm also going to be adding some of the water sprite that I have in my 5-gallon tank. Since it's growing so fast, it'll be really easy for me to propagate that water sprite into the 20-gallon tank as well. And here is this piece of water sprite that I've been floating for a little while. So this is gonna be ready to trim and plant right into the 20-gallon tank. Okay guys, first things first, I've got a couple big bags of this Stony River pebbles here. So we're gonna use this around some of the base of the rocks to give texture, give depth, but also just to make sure that we don't have aqua soil coming up on top of our sand. So let's go ahead and put this in here in some of those areas and see how it looks. Okay guys, well that didn't take me very long to figure out that that was a bad idea. We're gonna go ahead and just plant directly into the substrate here with the aqua soil, and then from there we'll do all the substrate. All right guys, so I'm thinking that we're gonna start low and then work our way up. So we'll go ahead and we'll start with that water sprite that I pulled out of my 5-gallon tank. We'll get that put into here, and then I've got 2 of these little trimmings. We'll get that put in the tank, and then from there we'll go ahead and kind of work our way up, go with substrate plants, and then to Anubias, and then we should be good. All right, and then we'll go in with our Brazilian pennywort here. And I'm thinking we'll put this in the back left-hand corner. And then we'll go ahead and run across the back with our Crypt Spiralis here. All right, guys, well, that's all of our substrate dwellers. And now it's time to go ahead and move on to the Anubias and getting that all attached to the driftwood here. But first, let's go ahead and give everything a good spray down to make sure that it doesn't dry out. All right, and then to start us off with our Anubias, we're gonna go ahead and get going with Anubias hastifolia. And of course I lied to you guys again. I totally forgot about our Crypt Lutea, or Lutea. So we're gonna go ahead and plant these in here and then keep going on with our Anubias. All right, guys, so that is all of our Crypt Lutea in here. And, oh man, I got a lot of that. So it's pretty dense right up in here. I got some over here, some up in here, one around the side here. So that should grow in really nicely. I even have a couple little bits like this one right down over here. That one was tiny little piece that broke off, but that should blossom into a whole new plant. All right, but let's go ahead and get our Anubias coffeefolia in there. All right, and then last but not least, we have our Anubias Nana Petite, just to fill in the tiny last gaps that are left. All right, guys, so that's the planting done. I'm loving how it's looking so far, but I know that it's only gonna get better as we go and as the plants grow in more. So now the next step, I think, is going to be the hardest step, which is going to be getting the substrate in here in a way that I like, that hopefully hides all of that aqua soil. So we're gonna try that and see what we can come up with. All right, guys, I think that'll be fine for the sand for now. Boy, that's really overwhelming, the exposure on the camera. Now, another hard part is we're just gonna add some of this more fine gravel. We're gonna try to cover all of the aqua soil. We're gonna see if we can make that happen with this little bag. I'm not holding my breath. Okay guys, so this hardscape and plants and the substrate, this looks really, really good. Like this looks a lot better than I was expecting it to. And when it exceeds your expectations, you know, I guess that's always a good sign. So next step, we just have to add our Java moss and then it's ready to fill up. All right, so we got our little cup of Java moss here. We've actually got 2 of these, so we're just gonna use this to fill in some of the empty spaces or some of the areas where it could just use a little something extra. All right, guys, well, that looks just terrific. Now all we have to do is fill up the tank. All right, and as for our Daphnia culture, I've got this bin set up. It's been running for a little bit now. There we go. So I just keep the lid partially on there. I have an air pump in my cabinet here that is running 2 air lines with air stones into this bin. That should be more than adequate for these little Daphnia. All right, now here's the hard part, putting the Daphnia in. Are you ready? The hardest part about this is just making sure that you get as many of them as you can. Now, they're kind of hard to see because they're so small, but you should be able to see them flapping around in there. Now, when the water is really clear like this, that's actually not ideal for them. They need to have a bit of cloudiness in the water because they are filter feeders. So they will filter the water and eat what's floating around in the water column. So I need to go ahead and put some food in here to make sure that these guys don't starve. And then as far as feeding the Daphnia goes, all you need is just a little bit of water and mix in a little bit of that Daphnia food, and then straight into the little tank. Give it a quick mix, suspend as much of that into the water as possible. And I think I'm gonna put a little bit more in because that water is still looking really clear. All right, guys, well, I think that'll just about wrap up this tank build for now. We're gonna have to let the tank sit and cycle for a couple of weeks to make sure that it's ready for fish. That'll also give the plants an opportunity to get established and get rooted in there. I'll be back in a few weeks to update you guys on the progress of this tank and my Daphnia culture. I will also be adding fish into this tank in my next video. Since I recorded that last video, I have added a small cleanup crew to the tank. I managed to rescue 2 juvenile bladder snails from my 5-gallon pea puffer tank and transplant them into the 20-gallon tank here.
Since I've added those snails, they have grown so huge, bigger than any other bladder snail that I've seen so far, and they've also laid eggs all over the tank. So I'd give it about a week or two before I have several hundred bladder snails all motoring around my tank and cleaning up. In addition to the bladder snails, I also added 4 yellow Amano shrimp. I've never kept Amano shrimp before, but they seem to be doing really well in this tank. They were super shy during the first week where I hardly saw them at all. But now that it's been a couple of weeks, anytime I walk by the tank, there's always at least a couple of them that are out and about in the tank doing their thing. They're pretty small right now because I got them as juveniles, although I am already starting to see them molting, which means that they're growing bigger, which is good for me because that means less algae and less biofilm. You guys can also probably see how much my plants have grown since my last video. It's certainly come a long way from being a brand new tank. My cycle is complete and all of my plants are rooting in there very well, and I'm seeing growth out of every single plant that's in this aquarium. In addition to the plant growth, you guys can probably also see that there's quite a bit of white and brown biofilm that's been growing on the driftwood. That's totally normal and completely natural, but as you can probably see, it doesn't look very good. So before we put any fish into this tank, I'm gonna go ahead and try to scrub as much of that biofilm off of the driftwood as possible, and then siphon as much of it out as I can doing our water change. And as soon as we're done with that, we're gonna go ahead and run to the aquarium store and get some schooling fish to put into this tank. Unfortunately, I'm not able to put any pea puffers into this tank just yet because I really wanted to get some dither fish. Dither fish are typically fast swimming schooling fish. The goal of the dither fish is to distract the other more aggressive fish like the pea puffers in the tank to help minimize the aggression towards each other and towards the other creatures in the tank. So we'll be adding our dither fish in today and then giving them a couple of weeks to settle in, and then we'll finally be able to load our pea puffers in here. I think we'll probably add about a dozen dither fish. That makes for a good schooling size where you see their natural behavior. And then I'm thinking to cap it all off, we'll do about 10 pea puffer fish. And that will complete this entire tank build. But for now, it's time to go ahead and get this tank cleaned up so we can go to the aquarium store. I'm gonna go ahead and speed this up so that we can get to the fun part. Let's get scrubbing.
Alright guys, so we just got done with our water change, and as you can probably see, the water's a little bit cloudy. I was kind of expecting that biofilm to come off in chunks rather than as like dust. So naturally, the water clouded up really quickly. It went everywhere. I tried to suck as much of that out as I could with my siphon, but I think we're just gonna have to let the filter do its thing and it'll all settle and get filtered out eventually. And I don't know if you guys caught it, but my Brazilian pennywort actually came uprooted for some reason. I don't know at what point that happened, but when I was doing my water change, I noticed that it came uprooted, so I had to stop and replant them back in there, so hopefully those recover okay. But now that the water change is done, we're gonna go ahead and let that dust settle in the tank. We're also gonna let my shrimp calm down because they're freaking out. But it's time to run to the fish store and get those fish. Let's get going.
2,000 years later.
All right, guys, well, we finally made it to the aquarium store. Now, this is a different aquarium store than the one that I usually go to, and I have to admit, this is really my favorite aquarium store that I've ever been into. It's called the Chlorophyll Corner, located in Mesa, Arizona. Now, this is gonna be a pretty quick in and out trip grabbing these fish. You'll get to see a little bit of the store, but go ahead and leave a comment down below if you wanna see a whole store tour with the owner. Let's go ahead and head inside.
All right, guys, so we've got our fish. It took me longer than I care to admit to pick them out. There was a lot of good choices, but I decided to go with blue tetras. Now, their color is not full right now. They look kind of pale because, you know, they just got moved. But once they get settled into the new tank back home, I know that they're gonna color up really, really nicely. So let's go ahead and get home and we'll get these guys in the tank and see how they look.
One eternity later.
Okay, and just like that, we are home now. We've got all 12 of our super energetic little blue tetras here. Now, I've never seen a store that had blue tetras. And again, they're looking pretty pale right now, but they're gonna look a lot better once they get comfortable in the tank. They'll start to color up really nicely, but I think there's a dozen in there. We lost count, but close enough, right? So we're gonna go ahead and get these guys acclimated in the tank here. And as soon as they're acclimated with the water temperature, we're gonna go ahead and let them go and see how they look swimming around in there. And we're gonna let them sit in there for about a half hour or so before we release them from the bag. Okay, so it's been about 30 minutes or so since we put our fish in the bag here. I've been slowly dripping water into their bag just to kind of acclimate them a little bit quicker, but now they should be good to go. So I'm gonna get this clip off of here. There we go. And then we'll just do a very gentle tip to the side and they should come right out. And there we go. They are in the tank now. So it might take them a little while to kind of get comfortable. You can see that they're schooling around, not really schooling, but swimming around frantically. As soon as they start schooling together, that's when we know that they're getting more comfortable. And one of the best ways to get fish to get comfortable in the tank is to offer them some food. So I got this food at the same time as I got the fish, so I'm gonna take just a pinch of this and drop it in there and see if they'll go for it. Oh, it looks like they're loving that. Little bit of a closer view here. So they are pretty frantic right now, but we'll give them a little bit of time to calm down. Once they get more comfortable, they should color up more. And just like that, we've got a new school of fish in our fish tank. It's so exciting to finally see all of your hard work pay off when this tank comes to life. My blue tetras are already starting to get their full color again, and I can't wait to see how they settle into this tank over time. But that's gonna do it for this video, guys. If you enjoyed the video, please leave a like and subscribe. It definitely helps out my channel, and I'll see all of you guys in the next video. This has been Desert Fresh Aquatics, and thank you for watching.